My wife's affair partner came to my house and threatened me. I said nothing, just walked inside. 30 minutes later, cops were at his door and he was begging me for mercy. I, 38 male, am, or was, a man who valued simplicity. My job in logistics is about predictable systems. My weekends were for soccer and quiet time. I thought my 12-year marriage to Deborah, 36, was the most predictable system of all. I was wrong. The signs were there for months, of course. The secretive phone calls, the sudden interest in high-end lingerie she never wore for me, the late nights at the office that felt different. I now know these are the classic, boring signs of an affair, but I chose to ignore them. It's easier to believe in the life you have than to face the one that's crumbling in front of you. The demolition happened on a Tuesday. I felt a migraine coming on and left work early. I walked into my own bedroom and found her with him. Jason, 40, a man who oozed the kind of slick confidence I've always distrusted. He's a sales executive at her company. The whole situation was a walking, talking cliché. There was no yelling, no dramatic confrontation. The air left my lungs, replaced by a hollow, ringing silence. I looked at them, a tableau of my life's biggest failure, and I felt nothing but a profound sense of finality. I turned, walked out of the room, and quietly closed the door. When Deborah followed me out, stammering apologies and excuses, I just held up a hand. "Get out," I said, my voice flat. "Both of you, get out of my house." They left. I spent the next 2 days in a daze, calling in sick and trying to process the wreckage. Then came Saturday. I was trying to do something normal, something routine. I was mowing the lawn. A black Audi A7, aggressively polished, pulled up to the curb. Jason got out, dressed in expensive jeans and a polo shirt, looking like he owned the world and was just stopping by to inspect my small piece of it. He walked up my driveway with an unearned swagger. "We need to talk," he announced. I kept my hand on the mower's handle, the engine rumbling. I didn't give him a response. "Look, Ryan," he said, his tone condescendingly familiar. "Deborah told me things have been tough, that you've been distant. I get it, man. Marriages lose their spark." The audacity was stunning. He stood on my property, after sleeping with my wife in my bed, and tried to position himself as some kind of worldly, understanding peer. He mistook my silent rage for weakness. He stepped closer. "This is how it's going to play out," he said, his voice dropping slightly. "You're going to give Deborah an easy divorce. No fuss, no drama. You won't touch her finances. She's been through enough, and she deserves to be happy. We deserve to be happy." He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. "If you make this hard for her, or for me, I have a lot of resources. I can make things very difficult for a guy like you. I know people you don't. Do you understand what I'm saying?" It was a clear, unambiguous threat. My heart was pounding, a frantic drumbeat in my ears. I'm not a big guy. I don't get into fights. But in that moment, it wasn't fear I felt. It was a cold, clarifying anger. All the hurt and confusion coalesced into a single hard point of certainty. I looked at him, at his smug, threatening face. I looked at my front door. Then I turned, left the mower running in the middle of the lawn, walked inside my house, and locked the door behind me. I heard him shout, "Coward," before driving off. My hands were shaking, but my mind was sharp. A couple of years ago, I installed a good security system. 4 cameras, clear audio, cloud backup. The one pointed at the driveway had captured everything. The car, his face, his words, his threats. Crystal clear. I saved the video file. I didn't call 911. This wasn't a crime in progress. I looked up the non-emergency line and filed a police report over the phone. I explained what happened and gave the officer the report number. He was professional but non-committal. He said someone would be in touch and that the video would be very helpful. About an hour later, I got a call. It was Jason. His voice was no longer slick. It was tight with fury and a hint of panic. "The police just called me," he spat. "They want me to come in and give a statement about a verbal altercation." "What the hell did you do?" "I filed a report," I said calmly. "You're going to regret this. You have no idea who you're messing with. You need to call them back right now and tell them you overreacted. Tell them it was a misunderstanding." I listened as he cycled through threats and bluster. When he finally stopped for a breath, I said, "I think you should probably talk to a lawyer," and hung up. I went back outside, turned off the mower, and put it away. The lawn was still half done, but I had made a start. Update 1. Hey everyone, thanks for the comments on my first post. It helps to know I'm not overreacting. It's been a slow, grinding 3 weeks, and the situation has developed. First, the legal stuff with Jason. After the police interviewed him, an interview I'm sure he was smug and dismissive in, the case was passed to a detective who reviewed my security footage. Last week, Jason was formally charged with uttering threats and criminal trespassing. These aren't life-destroying felonies, but they are serious misdemeanors that come with lawyers and court dates. He has a preliminary hearing scheduled in 2 months. 2 months. That's the real speed of justice for you. It's not a TV show. This development sent Deborah into a full-blown meltdown. She's officially moved out and is staying with him. The texts and voicemails I've received are a case study in narcissistic rage. I cannot believe you are dragging Jason through the mud like this. He was just trying to talk to you. You're being vindictive. And it's a bad look, Ryan. This is why I couldn't be with you anymore. Your inability to handle conflict maturely. You always had to be the victim. There has been zero accountability for the affair. In her mind, the affair is a non-issue. My reaction to being threatened by her lover is the actual crime. I hired a divorce lawyer, a sharp, methodical man named Timothy. The first thing he told me was, patience. The system is slow, but it's thorough. We will use their actions, not our emotions. He officially filed the divorce petition last week. Deborah was served the papers at Jason's apartment. I can only imagine how that went down. As expected, the response from their side was aggressive. I received a letter from Jason's very expensive lawyer. It was full of bluster about a misunderstood, passionate conversation, and threatened a countersuit for malicious prosecution and defamation if I didn't immediately withdraw my complaint and issue a formal, written apology. I just scanned it and emailed it to Timothy. His response was a one-liner. This is what guilty people do. We will ignore it. The hardest part has been the social fallout. Deborah and Jason have been on a PR campaign. I found out through a mutual friend, Amy, that they're spinning a tale of me being a controlling, emotionally withdrawn husband and Jason being her savior. My act of calling the police is being painted as a desperate, pathetic attempt to lash out. Some people are buying it. I've lost a couple of friends I thought I could count on. That part stings more than the affair, in some ways. I had a weak moment last week. I was sitting in the quiet house, staring at the empty space where her things used to be, and I felt the weight of it all. The betrayal, the legal fees, the loneliness. I allowed myself to feel sorry for myself for exactly 1 evening. The next morning, I made coffee and opened a new Excel file. A very detailed one. I'm documenting everything. Every text, every email, every interaction. Timothy says documentation is our best weapon. They think this is a game of emotions and public opinion. They're about to find out it's a game of evidence and procedure. Let them play their short game. I'm settling in for a long one. Update 2. It's been 3 months since my last update. 3 months of lawyer emails, discovery requests, and a simmering low-grade stress. Deborah and Jason's entitlement has predictably blossomed into outright aggression. First, the divorce demands came in. Deborah's lawyer sent over her terms. She wants me to sell the house and give her 60% of the equity, claiming she made significant career sacrifices for my benefit. She's a senior manager at a marketing firm and earns nearly as much as I do. On top of that, she's demanding spousal support. It was an opening salvo designed to be outrageous. But the real escalation came from Jason. He tried to get a restraining order against me. The legal filing was a work of fiction. It claimed I was unstable and that he and Deborah were living in fear. The centerpiece of his evidence was a grainy photo of my Honda Accord, parked on a street near his apartment building, with a timestamp from a month prior. The narrative was that I was stalking them, lingering with malicious intent. When Timothy forwarded me the file, a cold knot formed in my stomach. This was a classic, dirty tactic. A he said, she said scenario designed to muddy the waters and paint me as the aggressor. How do you prove you weren't somewhere? I called Timothy, my voice tighter than I wanted it to be. This is a lie, I told him. How do we fight this? With facts, he said calmly. Don't panic. Did you happen to be there? No, I was at work. I was in a quarterly planning meeting all afternoon. Good, Timothy said. Who was in the meeting? We'll get affidavits, but we can do better. You mentioned your car insurance, right? The telematics device? The light bulb went on. For a 20% discount on my premium, I had a little dongle from my insurance company plugged into my car's OBD2 port. It tracks driving habits, speed, and, crucially, GPS location. I had completely forgotten about it. This is where the story differs from a TV show. I couldn't just log in and print a gotcha screenshot. Timothy explained that for it to be admissible evidence, we needed the official, certified records from the insurance company itself. So he drew up a subpoena. It took 2 weeks for the legal department of the insurance company to process it and send over the certified data logs. 2 weeks of me worrying they'd mess it up or the data would be corrupted. The files finally arrived at Timothy's office. The data was perfect. It showed, second by second, that on the day and time Jason claimed I was stalking his apartment, my car was parked in my office parking garage, 7 miles away. The log even showed the engine being turned off and not restarted until 5:15 p.m. We also got sworn affidavits from my 3 colleagues who were in the planning meeting with me all afternoon. The restraining order hearing was last week. It was in person, in a sterile little courtroom. Seeing Deborah and Jason sitting together at the respondent's table sent a jolt of anger through me. They looked smug. Their lawyer presented the grainy photo and argued that his client was terrified. Then Timothy stood up. He didn't grandstand. He calmly presented the affidavits from my colleagues. Then he presented the subpoenaed, certified GPS data from the insurance provider. He handed copies to the judge and to their lawyer. I watched Jason's face as his lawyer read the document. The smugness evaporated, replaced by a pasty, slack-jawed shock. He started whispering furiously at Deborah, whose face went completely white. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, looked over the documents, then looked at Jason over her glasses. "So you're telling me," she said, her voice dangerously quiet, "that the respondent was stalking you at a time when certified records prove his vehicle was 7 miles away and sworn affidavits place him in a business meeting?" Their lawyer stammered. The judge wasn't having it. She denied Jason's restraining order. She called his petition frivolous and malicious. She then granted Timothy's counter-request for a temporary restraining order against Jason, ordering him to stay away from me and my home. Finally, and most importantly, she announced she was referring the entire matter, the petition and its supporting documents, to the district attorney's office for investigation into potential perjury and filing a false report. They walked out of the courtroom looking like they'd been hit by a truck. Their dirty trick didn't just fail. It blew up in their faces. Jason's existing criminal case for threatening me now has a new, ugly companion. A DA's investigation into him and Deborah for lying to the court. The game just changed, and the price of playing went way, way up. Final update: it's been almost a year since my life was turned upside down. The grind is finally over. For anyone who has followed this, I figured you deserved the final chapter. The theme, as it turns out, is the slow, inevitable avalanche of consequences. The legal system is a slow beast, but it has teeth. Jason and Deborah learned that the hard way. Let's start with Jason. His life is now permanently altered. The DA's office did, after a 3-month investigation, charge both him and Deborah with filing a false police report and conspiracy to commit perjury. These were far more serious than his original charges. Faced with an airtight case, our GPS evidence and affidavits versus their proven lies, Jason's legal options were slim. His lawyer advised him to take a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to the original charge of uttering threats and to the lesser charge of filing a false report. The conspiracy and perjury charges were dropped as part of the deal. His sentence: 3 years of probation, a significant fine that was in the 5-figure range, and court-mandated enrollment in a year-long anger management and behavioral therapy program. He now has a permanent criminal record. The permanent restraining order preventing him from contacting me was a foregone conclusion. His career imploded, but not overnight. When the initial charges were filed, his consulting firm placed him on paid administrative leave. However, once he entered a guilty plea and was convicted, they terminated his employment, citing a morals clause in his contract. The conviction for lying to law enforcement made him radioactive. The financial collapse followed. The high-end apartment lease was broken, at great cost. The Audi A7 was voluntarily surrendered to the bank after several months of missed payments, to avoid official repossession. I learned from Amy that he and Deborah now live in a much smaller, older rental unit across town. He is reportedly struggling to find work in his field due to his criminal record and the spectacular way his last job ended. And Deborah. Her involvement in the false report was her undoing. Our divorce proceedings dragged on for months, pending the outcome of the criminal investigation. Once the charges were filed against her, any leverage she thought she had was gone. In family court, credibility is paramount. Timothy was able to introduce the evidence of her conspiracy to commit perjury. It painted a devastating picture of her character. The judge was appalled. Her absurd demand for 60% of the assets and spousal support was rejected in its entirety. The judge's final decree was brutal. He cited her economic misconduct and malicious actions intended to harm the other party, which significantly skewed the asset division. The final result: I kept the house, refinancing to buy out her much-reduced share of the equity. The judge awarded me a portion of my legal fees, which were deducted from her payout, arguing that her actions directly caused those fees to be incurred. She received no spousal support. She walked away with a check that was probably less than 20% of what she initially demanded, most of which likely went straight to her own lawyer. She avoided a criminal conviction by entering a diversion program for first-time offenders. But the record of the charge and her participation in the program is still there. Her social life withered. It wasn't an instant shunning, but a slow, creeping isolation as the legal facts came to light. Friends who tried to stay neutral eventually backed away when they realized she had lied and tried to frame me. Her career, last I heard, is stalled. She wasn't fired, but she was passed over for a promotion, and the office environment is reportedly chilly. They are still together, bound by their shared catastrophe. The exciting, passionate affair has curdled into a grim reality of financial stress and social isolation. As for me, I'm okay. Better than okay. It was a hellish year, filled with anxiety and legal bills. But I learned a lot about my own resilience. I didn't stoop to their level. I didn't get loud. I got organized. I trusted the process, as slow and frustrating as it was. The peace in my house is real now. It's not an absence of noise, it's a presence of calm. A few months ago, I donated our old bedroom set and bought a new one. It was a small act, but it felt like closing a book. I go to therapy. I've worked through the anger and the grief. I've reconnected with the friends who stuck by me. I bought a kayak and I spend my weekend mornings on the water. It's quiet out there. It's simple. I don't feel like a hero. I feel like a man who was forced to navigate a storm and made it back to shore. They mistook my quiet nature for weakness, and they paid a price calculated by their own actions. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted it to be over. And now it is. I'm free.